Finally, the Ukrainian sky will become safer from Russian ballistic missile strikes. The president of Ukraine, Volodymyr Zelensky, announced several breakthroughs during a meeting with the president of Estonia, Alar Karis. Ukraine recently received an additional batch of missiles for the Patriot systems. It was no coincidence that Donald Trump's representative Keith Kellogg arrived in Kiev and a meeting of the coalition of willing countries was held in the capital. In addition to Patriot missiles, Ukraine will receive Krotal systems with missiles and separately AIM missiles. And Britain and France have agreed to grant a license for the domestic production of Storm Shadow and Scalp missiles in Ukraine. In addition, the European Union has allocated 6 billion euros to strengthen air and missile defense. But all this is happening against the backdrop of Germany increasingly becoming the target of hybrid attacks from Russia, which really doesn't like the fact that Europe is not afraid of filthy Russia and is increasing its support for Ukraine. Today in Germany, a third drone with explosives was found near the airport. And the Chancellor of Germany, Friedrich Merz, promised to soon name those responsible for attempting to attack, including Ukrainian planes, on his country's territory. Let's break down both sides of this situation in this episode, because there is a lot to analyze here. My name is Alexey Pechi, let's discuss this topic together, but before we begin, I ask you to subscribe to the channel, like this episode and don't forget to leave your comment under this video, maybe even later, while you're watching. So let's start with the most important thing, missiles. A direct quote from Zelensky. We have received, I won't say from which country, confirmation of the transfer of several Krotal air defense systems and missiles for them. And we also received AIM missiles. These are very important missiles for us. We use them to shoot down enemy missiles. But that was just a prelude to the main news. Ukraine has received a new package of Patriot missiles. But Zelensky also did not rush to specify this, and here is another quote from him. And to be honest, I also won't say which country sent them, a few more Patriot missiles have arrived. How many? I can't say, but it's not many. We need more. And as a result of the summit of the Coalition of the Willing in Kiev, targeted aid packages for regions of Ukraine were announced. Here's an interesting arrangement. In particular, Belgium and Denmark have taken responsibility for the Mykolaiv region. Now they are sort of overseeing this area. They will allocate funds for defense and reconstruction. Estonia is supporting Zhytomyr. Sweden is providing a significant package for the production of Ukrainian drones. Meanwhile, Belgium and Germany have announced separate energy packages. And as we discussed with you yesterday, the first military exercises of the contingent of the Coalition of the Willing will take place as early as October or November, who may enter Ukraine to guarantee compliance with the ceasefire regime. In short, the Coalition of the Willing, led by France and the United Kingdom, which everyone laughed at, is actually producing results. Now the second, no less significant news of the day. The license to produce Storm Shadow and Scalp missiles. On August 24, French President Emmanuel Macron and British Prime Minister Andy Burnham agreed to grant Ukraine the appropriate license and disclose secret rights to Ukraine. Секретные технологии. Next is a quote from Zelensky. We received confirmation from the United Kingdom regarding the production of long-range Scalp missiles. Before that, we spoke with President Macron and he confirmed the unblocking of Scalp and the license. This is a very positive development and a strong decision. The British government also allowed the defense company MBDA to disclose classified information about the British components of the missile. Since Storm Shadow and Scalp use shared French and British technologies. The missile that was licensed is capable of flying 550 kilometers, carrying 400 kilograms of explosives, and penetrating fortified enemy positions. Separately, Zelensky announced that in 7 to 10 days, there will be a schedule for working with the Freya anti-ballistic system. In particular, it will outline which meetings with partners are planned, where exactly the process is stalling, and with which company and from which country there are issues that need to be resolved. These are also the results of the meeting of the Coalition of the Willing. And one more detail, again based on the results of the Coalition of the Willing, Norway has confirmed funding for aid to Ukraine in the amount of $9 billion for 2027. Now let's discuss how realistic it is technically for Ukraine to produce Storm Shadow and Scalp missiles on its own. Aviation experts assure that the situation with air defense missiles and Storm Shadow missiles is fundamentally different. With interceptor missiles like PAC-2 or PAC-3, for the Patriot system, Ukraine has neither the experience nor the appropriate infrastructure. After all, these are ultra-high-speed missiles with a solid fuel engine, requiring a heat-resistant alloy that can withstand extreme overloads, and an active millimeter-wave radar seeker. This is such a complex and classified technology that the American company does not want to share it. Therefore, when they talked about the license for the Patriot, they meant years before Ukraine would be able to produce them independently. But with Storm Shadow, the situation is different. The fact is that Ukraine already produces Neptune cruise missiles, has the Luch Design Bureau and the Motor Siege plant, which manufactures engines. Storm Shadow is a subsonic missile with a conventional turbojet engine, a composite body, and a guidance system using a thermal imaging seeker and terrain correlation. Exactly the same technology has already been implemented in Ukrainian Neptune missiles. As for the timeline, the deployment of large unit assembly when ready-made kits are supplied and assembled in Ukraine is possible within 6 to 12 months. But full localization of production could take up to 5 years. The Kremlin's reaction to these plans is also telling. Today, Putin's press secretary Dmytro Peskov stated that Russian intelligence is already searching for sites in Ukraine where such weapons could be produced or assembled in order to strike them. And you know, Russia really doesn't like the fact that Europe hasn't been scared off by the wild Russians and hasn't stopped helping Ukraine. On the contrary, it's actually increasing its support. And that's why Russia is increasing its sabotage activities all over Europe. Well, they're afraid to attack directly. As we found out, Russians are cowardly rats. They're afraid to attack directly. Today it became known that back on August 14, another drone was discovered in a field in the community of Rossau, Kabersketter, not far from Leipzig-Halle Airport. And the next day, about 50 grams of explosives were also found, most likely hexogen. All of this, as you can imagine, is happening in Germany. According to Der Spiegel, the drone that was found was malfunctioning and the explosives did not detonate. Law enforcement officials believe there could have been 3 drones. Just so you understand, this is a continuation of the story about the attempt to attack a Ukrainian plane in Germany at Leipzig airport. Let me remind you of the chronology here. The first drone with explosives was found on the airport grounds back on August 4th. Its detonator also didn't go off. It was located next to the Ukrainian military transport plane. It is from this airfield that weapons are supplied to Ukraine. And the investigation believes that the device was intended specifically to attack the Ukrainian military transport plane. Another drone. The drone allegedly could have collided with a DHL cargo plane that same night, but law enforcement has not yet found the drone itself. However, they did find part of the explosives in a field. Separately, the investigation is studying a device found in the village of Kursdorf. It could have been used to control that very drone. According to DHL, traces of an explosion that occurred on August 4 were found near the device, around the same time as the appearance of the drone near the Ukrainian aircraft. They found an antenna and a signal repeater that could have amplified the drone's signal. The case is currently being investigated by the German Federal Criminal Police Office under the direction of the General Prosecutor's Office on suspicion of terrorism. And today, the Chancellor of Germany, Friedrich Merz, stated that there are signs pointing to the organizers of the attack. According to him, those responsible will be named after their involvement is confirmed, and what happened cannot go without consequences. Representatives of the German government are considering the possible involvement of Russian intelligence services. But here's an important point. The publication Die Zeit also writes that investigators are considering at least 2 theories. These are Russia's involvement and even the possibility that Ukraine organized the attack under a false flag. As a result, Friedrich Merz stated, quote, "No attacks or intimidation can stop the police. Support is needed, which Berlin is providing to Ukraine." I think it's appropriate to leave it at that for now. Share your opinions and conclusions in the comments below this episode. Subscribe to the channel, like this episode and click the bell so you don't miss new episodes on this channel. That's all for now. Take care of yourselves. Goodbye everyone.